Hi, and welcome to Deep Dive with Jamie Stein, where we take a deep dive look at all things reality TV, pop culture, and the world at large. I'm an intuitive and an empath, which means I pick up on the thoughts, feelings, and energy percolating in other people and the world around me. I believe there is meaning waiting to be found at every turn if you're willing to see it. So join me as we dismantle everything from trash TV to high spiritual concepts and learn more about ourselves, each other, and how we're all connected. All right, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of Deep Dive with Jamie Stein. And if you've been following along this little creative journey, I'm all about quick and dirty conversations on the go. And on that note, we're just sticking with the tradition. I heard from old friend of the pod, Molly Durand, about some of her summer house thoughts and just had an impulse. I had to get her on the phone and have a quick and dirty chat about Paige DeSorbo, Craig, their breakup, everything that we're seeing play out. So she's here with me today. And on that note, we're going to get into it. So hello, Molly.
Hello. Yes, I've been dying to talk about the whole summer house situation and Southern Charm, actually. But these two people in particular, it's a perfect way in.
Yeah, as I was just telling you, I'll tell my listeners, I was just chatting about Paige, actually, I've done a bunch of research. I've actually listened to a few Giggly Squad episodes, which actually did really help me to understand Paige. I'm realizing there are ways in which I've misunderstood Paige. So I'm glad I went and did that. I've been rewatching certain episodes, and then I just had a very productive chat with ChatGPT about Paige. And I feel like I want to commit to the fact that I'm going to publish this chat somewhere on social media because I think my listeners would get so much out of it. So I'm energized. I'm ready to go. There's so much on my mind around this. But yeah, let me just kind of start by checking in with you. I know you have a lot of feelings about it too. So if we were just to kind of slow down for a moment and just bring Paige, I think, into the field, because you had listened to my last episode about Summer House, and that's when you started writing to me about Paige and your hits and your response. So I guess just big picture, yeah, where are you right now? What's kind of the headline for you with Paige?
What I loved about what you shared in the last one was when you were talking about her awareness of being able, and I'm not sure how you prefaced it, but her awareness of how to speak, when to speak, what to say. I just find her to be very intelligent. I sort of look at her from the Scorpio perspective. I'm Scorpio, she is. So I'm interested in her sort of, I would say, magicianry or sorcery around being able to be aware of everything that's going on in the room and wield things in a way that allows her to control the narrative about how she is perceived. And she's perceived extremely well by the world. And I would say that I really like and admire Paige. I admire her for being her age and being so rooted in who she is. And also, I've really enjoyed the arc of seeing her change from like the early days of her kind of just wanting a boyfriend and that Italian guy to now wanting so much more out of life, which I think has a lot to do with where we're at with her and Craig. I've always loved Craig. I'm a huge Craig fan. I really feel like the two of them together created an entity of love. Like I think when two people come together, there's an energy that they create together. So it's been actually for me very sad to sort of see that disintegrate a little bit. But also the dynamic of the women and the men in Summer House has been something that has always fascinated me. And Paige is a strong voice in that as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into Paige's relationship towards men and masculine energy, because I think that's central to all of this. And if I'm being honest, Craig's relationship to women and feminine energy, I mean, just even that alone, I have so much to say about the two of them and them as a couple. But yeah, I think what I want to just say in response and reflect back to you is Giggly Squad, listening to Giggly Squad, that really helped me to understand more of what you're speaking to, which is the way in which Paige's own sense of her life and her life trajectory has changed over time. This is what I meant when I said I think I was misunderstanding her in a lot of ways. First of all, I want to own that I really forgot how young she is. I really forgot how young she is. When I was listening to Giggly Squad, and obviously she's talking a lot about this on the show now too, where she keeps saying, I'm in my early 30s, I'm 32. And I think because Paige does, in some ways have, she has a maturity to her. She's incredibly well-spoken. Like you said, she's very smart. In certain ways, outspoken. I'd say deceptively outspoken. And yeah, like has a outward veneer, at least, of self-possession and confidence. And so to be honest, and I think also because she's been in the house with people in their 40s, but originally in their mid to late 30s, and she could hang with them. I think that I've forgotten how young she actually is. And that's been really key to helping me understand her on a better level. And I think, part of that is really starting to understand that she is someone who used to have a different idea of what life would look like for her. I really underestimated that because, again, I just sort of saw her coming into this reality show, claiming her space, creating this career, doing it in a way that almost seemed effortless from the outside. So I just saw her as an outspoken, strong woman who doesn't apologize for who she is or what she wants. Like, that's how I saw her the whole time. And what I'm really starting to understand now is that this notion of truly what is expected of women, even in today's world, that is something that does sound and feel like it actually has been weighing on her. And in one of the Giggly Squad episodes I listened to, she literally said, if you had asked me at 16, I would have thought I'd be married by now, I'd have kids by now. If I heard myself in my early 30s talking about the things I'm talking about now as a younger woman, I would have been judgmental, dismissal, and I would have just said, pack it in, like give it a rest. So I think for me as an outside viewer, I think I really underestimated the degree to which there was an old identity for Paige. And then I think it should also be said, she comes from a traditional home and she lived at home all through college. Her parents are still married. Obviously, we've gotten sort of glimpses, at least one of the parents is, it feels like traditional Italian American. So it's
Italian.
Yeah. So,
and you've seen Italian films, so you know the the patriarchal ways, right?
Yes.
Of it. Yes.
So it's been settling in more and more, to your point of, actually, and I think even my misinterpretation in some ways perhaps speaks to the division in Paige, because to your point, she is so good at presenting a certain way. She is so good at presenting confidence, presenting maturity, presenting like she's got it all together. She's, like you said, she's aware of everything going on in the room. Now, I have more to say about that in a moment, but I think because of that, I think I fell for it. I think I forgot how young she actually is. And so I think because of that, I underestimated how much these issues have truly been weighing on her and how much of what I would call an edge it is for her to claim where she is in life right now, which is essentially, look, I'm focused on my career. I want to see how far this can go. I don't want to be tied down. I'm not interested in being a wife and a mother right now. And I think I almost felt like there was a way that she was deflecting how she showed up in her relationship with Craig and using that as a deflection. And I do think there's truth to that, which we'll get into in a moment. But still, in the place where multiple things can be true at once, I think I was really underestimating that it was also very real for her. That for her, and I'm actually even feeling things in my heart as I say this, that for Paige to come out and claim, this is actually what I want for myself, and I don't want to have to apologize for it for myself. I think she puts that on Craig. We'll get into that. But I don't want to have to apologize for this for me. I'm coming to understand that actually is a huge deal for her. And for all of her outspokenness, seeming confidence and maturity, and this is the last thing I'll say in terms of what you just brought in, when you talk about her control, I think there is such a scared girl in her, like so scared to speak up, to speak directly, to own her truth directly. So fucking scared. If I bring this directly, It's like I get abandoned, it gets used against me. Yeah, it gets used against me. That feels so alive to me for her. It will be twisted and used against me. So that's just kind of my initial energetic lay of the land.
No, I love it. It brings up so much for me to want to just like, I could pop off on like 3 things you said, but what the way that I utilize, like, I'll say scorpionic energy, right? And I'm going to use that as a symbol. We're not going to encapsulate and put this person into a box of Scorpio. I'm a Scorpio too, but like, I'm not going to do that, but I am going to say that some of the things that I can relate to or even see as being scorpionic have helped me to better understand Paige, as you're saying. And also, like I was thinking as you're talking about it, this is 9 seasons. Can't remember what season she came in, but she went through her Saturn return here, right? Like right during this whole thing. And also what she has wanted at the beginning has changed. What she wanted from the time she met Craig has changed. And we're watching that arc. And I very much I'm going to get into how she's pushing that on to Craig isn't supporting me, because she knows that she's evolving. And she almost feels like she can't find a way out of this relationship. So the easiest thing to do, and I don't think it's conscious, I think unconsciously she's uncomfortable. There's moments where I'm watching them together where I'm uncomfortable. She's just over it. Like she just knows this chapter for her is the end. You know, he's like, if you look at it through Joseph Campbell, right? Like he's in a completely different journey than where she is. And she's ready to go off and be Gandalf and like travel the world and see what's out there. And then so that she can actually decide what she wants. And he has already decided what he wants. Now, he was very clear about that from day one. She's always sort of maybe not known, right? So this goes back to my main theme with her, which I would say is any Scorpio that none of the Scorpios would admit to. We have control issues, power issues, and we have a shit ton of self-deceit. So much self-deceit that we actually can't see it. And we typically need guides to help us see it, right? And why a Scorpio can't see their own self-deceit is because they're the detective of the zodiac as well, and they can see through everybody else's. So they assume that they can see through their own. But because power and control is such a built-in mechanism in order for them to feel like they're going to survive, they will literally, and so with utter craft and magnetism and I would say hypnotic ability to tell you who they are before you can tell them who they are. They do it with humor, charm, and they need to be in control of the narrative. I very much was this way for most of my life, but I think I'm advised by somebody who's he's a much older triple Scorpio, and he can call me out, and so I can see my patterns in a clear way. And I think for her, she doesn't know what she wants. I think she still doesn't know what she wants. And when we don't know what we want, we put that on external circumstances. If I don't know what I want, then all of a sudden the people and the places and the obstacle between me and feeling good are the problem. And if I could remove the obstacle, if I remove Craig, I will be liberated. And then we go back into bondage of being in a relationship or out of a relationship. And is he putting the shackles on or isn't he? And I don't, it's very interesting to see her talk to, in the testimonials, the way that she describes what we just saw. Because I don't know what he says off camera, but on camera, he's extremely she's in the power position. He's just asking where we stand, and she's saying he's holding me back, and I'm not seeing I'm not seeing that. And maybe I'm missing something, but I'm not seeing where he's holding her back. I'm seeing somebody say, how do we make it work? Which I think is a reasonable thing to ask. Now, again, I don't know what he's saying. I don't think he's listening to her either since day one. She's been very clear. She's probably not going to go down that road. And he may be living in a fantasy, which I think he even copped to. We see what we want to see when we're in love. But that's sort of, I would start with, when I think of her and I have to have a conversation around her, I always start with the self-deceit part and also her desire to control the narrative. And I don't think it's conscious. I do not believe it's conscious. I think it's survival technique.
Yeah, exactly. And so this overlaps with what I was saying last time. And I think it's what you're responding to. the idea that I don't fully trust her as a narrator.
No.
And by the way, I don't trust Craig as a narrator either, but I don't trust her as a narrator. They're both unreliable narrators, but in different ways. And I totally agree with you. I think, yes, and what I'm coming to understand so much more deeply is what you're speaking to, which is the lack of consciousness around it. It does feel like there's a huge blind spot, and it's tricky even for her because, like you're saying, she is so perceptive and she's so good at spotting other people's stuff. So is Craig. That is true. She's got that thread of the truth teller in her. So I think it's very easy for her to start believing her own lies. I mean, lies feels like it's like probably the least generous way of saying it, but it's very easy for her to fall into the shadow of her own blind spot, let's say, or to believe her own narration. I think, the distilled thing I would say, just to kind of piggyback on what you're bringing in terms of the theme of control, and does Paige even know what she wants for herself, which I think is such an interesting question. I really feel, again, even as I'm saying it, I'm feeling things in my heart, which I actually think is good news for Paige, because if I trust everything that happens in this field as information about the person we're talking about, I've never felt this emotionally connected to Paige. Like, I've never felt Paige's heart in the way that I feel like I'm feeling it now. So I have to imagine this in some way reflects an opening and a softening that's happening in her right now, or at least the potential for it. But what I want to say is that I think there's a deep tension between, what others expect of her and what she actually wants for herself, and her right to claim what she wants for herself. And again, it's just this feeling like, if I claim what I want for myself and it goes against what others want of me, whether that's family of origin, my peers, society, like the reality TV audience, that's where I feel like the core tension comes in with her, of like, there's expectations of me. I might want something different. If I want something different, that's a danger zone. And again, I just keep feeling it's going to be turned against me. It's going to be used against me. And then, as Paige, especially as like a fucking powerful woman with a powerful voice, it's like I start pulling back from even knowing what I want. And then, because I am so powerful, I'm fucking outraged. I'm so angry. And then that's where I see her start to get mean to people. I mean, we can get very granular and specific, but we're seeing, like, with Craig, it's like, so what I see with Craig from the beginning, and again, now I have much more compassion for it, because now I'm understanding, this was actually a deep bind in you, Paige. Like, you weren't just leading him along. Like, I don't think you were intentionally being deceptive or deceitful. It's like, but you, on some level, I think it's been confusing for a lot of us, because I would watch these scenes between them. And to your point, I would just sit there and be like, these two are not on the same page, no pun intended, and they're both in denial. And I would sit there. I actually, if I can just go on a digression for 1 second, I see them very energetically parallel to Lindsay and Carl, except it's inversed. So with Lindsay and Carl, I felt like Lindsay was the Craig role of kind of breathing down Carl's neck a little bit, where she was kind of giving him space for Lindsay and saying, I get it. You can have a year. But there was, like, I could feel it. There was this demand she had on him. Like, she was hovering over him. She was giving him just enough space to give him space, but she really wanted more. And then Carl was kind of sitting there, essentially wanting to say, get the fuck off me. Like, stop breathing down my neck. And he wasn't fucking saying it. And so for him, I just wanted Carl to be like, Lindsay, back off. I'm doing what I'm doing. You're either here or you're not, but like, back the fuck off. I saw it reverse with Paige and Craig, where Craig was the one who wanted, like, he's been breathing down her neck. And he was smart enough to know, if I hover as much as I want to hover, she's running for the hills. So I'm going to back up 5 feet and give her the space that she says she wants and needs, but I'm standing right here. Like, I'm not going anywhere else. And I think for Paige, she was just sitting there unconsciously, like, you are breathing back down my neck, get the fuck off of me. And so when I would watch these scenes, I just wanted Paige. I was just like, just tell him, tell him to back off. Tell him you're not on the same page. Tell him you can't make him any promises.
Yes.
Tell him this stuff. But what I'm getting now is, if we track this back to a core bind around, I'm not even allowed to know what I truly want versus other people's expectations. And by the way, pattern, right? I mean, I have little hits about possible family of origin stuff, but like, let's just establish the pattern right now. You've got Craig with huge expectations, and it's quiet expectations. He's not being like, Paige, we got to do this now. We got to do this now. We got to do this now. Again, he's smart enough to play it quieter. Quiet suffocation, quiet devouring energy, and then something in Paige feeling like, I don't know that I have the right to actually want what I actually want versus someone else's expectations. So she holds back. She doesn't bring him her direct truth, which is like, you're smothering me. I love you, but back off. I don't know what the fuck I want. Like all of that. And so then what does she do? To your point, she starts making him the issue, and she gets her truth out, but in these cutting, sarcastic ways where she's like making little jokes about like, like, I don't want to get pregnant, like in a way that jabs him because she knows this is what he wants, or like, the way that she'll say to Amanda with such confidence and clarity, I don't think, he wants me to make him a priority, which, by the way, I agree with you. I don't know if that's actually what he was saying, like prioritize me over your career. But that's how Paige was taking it, and she was pissed about it, right? And she's saying that so clearly to Amanda. Craig comes around, and suddenly she's like, well, honey, am I making you enough of a priority this weekend? Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
She makes it a joke. She makes it a cutting joke. And that's where I, as someone who's like a viewer, am like, wow, Paige is fucking mean. And then I get alienated from her because I'm like, you're fucking cruel.
Well, I think the cruelty comes because she's not being honest with herself. And so she's enraged within. And I think like everything you're saying just keeps bringing me back to both of them, Craig and Paige's relationship to the truth. These are two people that, like, honestly, out of everybody in all these shows, I would love to sit down with them. I would probably agree with their viewpoint on everybody else. They see what's going on around them. They have a lot of insight. But when you were talking about Craig coming in and not fully hovering, like kind of pretending he's not hovering. Like in the beginning when they were first together, I think they were just kind of on this, like there were moments where he didn't have that expectation and they were more aligned. The more that expectation grew from him, you would start to feel him being more needy. And that's when she started to recoil from him a little bit. Like you can feel the energetic, like he's going in, she's starting to pull away, which is so uncomfortable to watch. Like there's one scene where she's literally like, pick up your phone, lay down, look at your phone, like leave me alone, like and he looks so, that is a horrible position to be in, to be told how to because she doesn't even want to connect with him. And that's why I thought Sierra was so brilliant in asking her at the picnic table, saying, what about you? Like, it's not about Craig. What about you? Now, I will say again, Scorpio, we have a hard time identifying sometimes where we're at. We'll tell you, no. I know where I'm at because we need control, right? So like a lot of what you're saying really speaks to how I feel about it too, because if she doesn't have a relationship of knowing how she feels, what she wants, when she wants it, and that scares her and makes her feel unsafe, then it's the people around her that are making her feel unsafe. And if she could eradicate them, then she'll feel better, which I've already sort of mentioned. But I think it's more about also both of them having a strange relationship to the truth, being truth tellers in the group, being able to see through everybody else's lies. Why can they see through lies? Because they probably are some part of them is trying to navigate their own, and I will use the word lies, and I will use it with gusto, because self-deceit is something that I think a lot of us have, but those of us who have it a little bit extra and we don't have the tools to sort of cut through it, it's not a fault. It's truly what we believe in those moments. It's truly like Paige has to tell the story to her friends in a certain way that'll make her friends obviously I know what to say to her, especially with women, men and women, right? Like unfortunately, Summer House has always been kind of like men versus women in my eyes, which has always sort of broken my heart because I'm really wanting this non-binary way of living. And this particular house has always been so black and white when it comes to male, female. And one of the things, like, you'll see, like, and I've said this to you a million times, like, we can talk all day long about these guys are fuckboys, this, that, and the other, but why are, like, Sierra going after Austin and then Wes? Like, they're so clearly unavailable to me, you know what I mean? I'm not blaming her for that, but she even says, like, I'm following a pattern with my father, and she's being able to see herself clearly, but when they start to villainize the guys for doing kind of what they said they would do, it ends up being, it kind of, then I'm like, oh, we're not getting anywhere with the non-binary movement. So, but going back to Paige, she knows what to say. She knows what to say to, especially if she's in a, come on, giggly squad with Hannah. Are you kidding me? Like, Hannah's extremely polarizing, but Hannah knows how to get fans, and she knows what to say, and she knows how to sensationalize. And both of them are really, really, they're well crafted with humor. Humor is a fucking powerful tool. Like, you can use humor to wield all of the things that you want in life. So Paige knows how to, and she will do it in testimonials when she has space. So she won't do it in real life, to your point. She'll be with Craig and be like, yeah, like the whole Kyle thing, she wanted him to speak up and like have the conversation with Kyle. Did she tell him that? No, she told it in testimonials. Right there, there's a disconnect.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was rewatching a scene, and to me, there was this micro moment. It's exactly what you're speaking to, but to me, it illustrates the macro pattern of this relationship where she's saying, she's listening to Craig sound off about Kyle, and Craig is like, oh, this has to be on my terms. And she's like, yeah, I get it. And what Paige says in her interview, oh, it's so telling. In her interview, she's like, look, I already have my issues with Craig. On top of that, I'm now angry with him, or it's causing me anxiety that he won't just have this conversation with Kyle now. And it's making me angry. This is the important part. It's making me angry that he doesn't know that he's causing me anxiety. And I'm sitting there saying, Paige, you haven't fucking told him it's giving you anxiety. Like, this is the issue. So, like, this is the issue. It's like, and this is the point about what we're making about the unreliable narrator. It's like, Paige, there's something in you that is unwilling to express your truth clearly and directly and to communicate. And this is where I want to sit. Like, I want to challenge her. I'm like, because look, and I know this gets tricky, and I know you're going to hang out with this and me. Paige's message about, strong, empowered women is an amazing message. And it goes without saying, I support Paige and anyone. Go do whatever the fuck you want to do. Like, you do not ever need to be a wife and a mother, and go ride this career. Do whatever you want to do, right? There's nothing wrong with that message. Where I get prickly is I feel like there's a way she uses that message sometimes to support her false narrative. So this is where I want to challenge Paige, where it's like, okay, if you're going to talk, let's not even make this about being strong, independent women. Let's make this about being strong, empowered fucking adults, right? Who have agency in our lives. If you're going to talk that way, Paige, then start speaking up. Like, start bringing the truth directly. If you want to be a strong, empowered individual and you're in a relationship with a guy who's causing you anxiety, take the risk to say, Craig, you're causing me anxiety right now. But what you can't do, and this is what I'm speaking to, is withhold your truth, not tell him what's going on with you, then be angry at him for not knowing what's going on with you, and then funneling that into a narrative about, well, fucking men, they just, they're useless and they're emotionally unintelligent and this, that, and the other. And I'm out here just trying to be a strong, independent woman. You know what I mean? It's like, no, Paige, you've got to take responsibility for your own emotional experience. And I think, like I said, I sort of saw that playing out on the macro level where obviously, as you're saying, doubts and questions were coming in, right? And then she's not expressing that clearly. And when she is expressing it, she's doing it through sarcastic, cutting jokes that make fun of Craig. And so I agree with you. I mean, and I want to, like you say, we don't know what's going on off camera. And again, that's what complicates this relationship, because I think they hid a lot of their relationship from the camera, much like Tom and Ariana on Vanderpump Rules. But regardless, based on what we're seeing, what I see Craig doing in wanting to check in with her and wanting to take the temperature of where she's at in terms of her career versus the relationship is basically he's saying, look, I just want to know where I stand. And to your point, he's been very clear. He actually said it when I was rewatching one of the episodes. He said to her, look, I support you, but if you're going to tell me you're going to stay this busy with your career or even busier, then this isn't going to work out, which to me, I'm like, that is fair. Craig is saying what he wants and needs so that they can figure out if they're right in relationship. And then what I see going on Paige's side is I have historical young fear and hesitation about claiming what I want versus other people's expectations. So I'm not going to give him a clear answer. And instead, I'm going to kind of make this about Well, let me just pause there. I'm not going to give you a clear answer. I'm going to joke about it. I'm going to make fun of you about it. I'm going to resent you for what you want, but I'm not going to give you a clear answer. And so then Craig is left on the other side in this energetic murkiness where he's sensing something, but Paige won't confirm or deny it. He's trying to make sense of the relationship. And he's saying, look, if you're going on tour, is our relationship still a priority? I experience him just trying to get to the truth. And then to your point, it's like Paige takes that and she makes it, oh my God, he's not happy for me. He can't handle a strong, independent woman. And that's where I'm just like, no, I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's just saying he knows what he wants. He's looking for a partner who's on the same page. And if you're not on the same page, it's time for you guys to split ways. But she can't hold it with that clarity and maturity.
Yeah. Or make that decision. I think making the decision was something that she was on the fence about because, like I said earlier, she may not know. And I do believe they had love within them, between each other. I found it fascinating when the whole Kyle, because she can speak her truth in the moment sometimes. Like with Kyle, she held her own. I felt like in that argument. And when she speaks in the testimonials, the way that she speaks, I'm oftentimes like, God, she is so brilliant at being able to succinctly and with humor sort of deduce what's really going on in most scenarios. But when it came to being in the moment with her and Craig, sometimes I even saw her look at the camera in the bedroom a couple times in this season, which I've never seen her do before. So I wonder too, if there's a sort of, as her career is changing and as her persona with a separate thing, Giggly Squad, is changing, I'm wondering, like, is her relationship to how she's perceived changing also? And is who she thinks she wants to be changing and how she's supposed to be? But one of the other things that you said in regards to Craig also, I feel like it's hard to just say, I don't want the same thing as you anymore, so I'm going to do all this unconscious activity to get out. Like, that's why a lot of people cheat. I've always asked, like, why do you cheat? Like, I wanted to get out. And so it's so, what is this relationship to being so, it's so difficult to just say what you want. So many people go through this. She is not alone in this. It is so hard to identify what we want and then say what we want. But then to say that I'm a strong, independent woman and all this other stuff, I think that's the bind. I think it's more like, I want to be a strong, independent woman. She already is a strong, independent woman. Look at her. She has a career. She's thriving. She already is. When you're a strong, independent woman, you're not talking about being a strong, independent woman. In fact, I've been independent and I didn't want to be most of my life, like my mom was a single mom. She didn't want to be a strong, independent woman. She had to be a strong, independent woman. So like, you don't usually say I'm a strong, independent woman unless it's something that you felt like you had to work to get to, right? Like I would love to not have to be a strong, independent woman sometimes, right? But I'm sure that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I think sometimes, like you're saying, she's using that as an opportunity to, going back to the narrative, right? Going back to it's not me, it's him. What baffles me is now that they're both in like different ways, not speaking terribly well of each other. The rage that is coming out of Paige and the after show towards him is really disheartening for me. And I almost feel like there was so much love there between her that and I really feel that she loved him. So I think the only way that she can cope with the separation and the guilt that she has about it is to villainize him. That's how I feel. I'm sure other things have gone on, but I feel like that's the only way that she can sort of get through this, because the amount of guilt that she felt, I think her relationship to guilt is one of the things that triggers her the most. Like, I've seen her cry twice. When I have seen her cry, that first time with the girls, she was afraid that she was getting in the middle with Hannah and then Amanda, and the guilt of that was the thing that made her cry the most. And then, as we've foreseen in the next episode, like, I'm afraid Craig's going to hate me.
Well, yeah, I mean, should I get into a little bit of what I intuitively get curious about in terms of history, childhood, family of origin? Because it speaks to all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I'll say this. When Paige first came on season 4, I forget what she shared about her family, but I remember a hit came in so strongly where, the way that she talked about it, I think she was talking about, in a way, being coddled and really sort of, I mean, this is my language, like being the princess of the family. And I remember just getting this immediate hit, this feeling, this possibility of, oh, okay, got coddled, was made the princess, and in a way feeling like there's a way that it feels like that could have quietly, silently, covertly like hobbled her. Because again, she is a powerful woman. She is a strong woman. She's got a powerful point of view. She's actually wants to be very clear. And so if a force kind of comes in, and again, a loving force, which would be very confusing, but a loving force that makes her the coddled little girl, and it is loving and it looks supportive and it is support. I mean, that's the thing, right? It's never just one thing. It's this loving, supportive family that she's very close to and would like die for her. But then there's kind of there's this silent weight of expectation and demand of like who she is, like the precious little girl, right? And I just remember, and feeling for her, like I could imagine you might be resentful of that. It might feel like pressure. It might feel like the weight of expectation of who you're supposed to be for your family. And I could imagine back then, like what was coming to me is I can imagine she might be really angry about that on a certain level and then feel like she has no right to be angry about it because again, they're loving her, they're spoiling her, they're giving her all this stuff. Like, again, she's very close to these people, right? I mean, even recently she made a comment, right? When they were out at that Australian dinner where she said, I forget exactly what she said, but one, she said, my parents are always right. My mom's always right with everything she says. And then she also said, I get so scared of making decisions that are going to let them down. And I feel guilty. And so for me, I'm just like, ding, 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 ding. Like to me, I just feel this like, and again, I'm feeling my heart now. It's like this quiet pressure of living up to their expectations, not disappointing them, being who they want me to be. And so there was that piece. And then, of course, I've watched her with men and I've watched her with Craig. And so I've always been interested in her relationship with men. And I've always felt this voice of never letting a man let me down again. Never letting a man, let me down again, disappoint me again. Yeah, never giving up my power to a man, never giving up my control to a man. And it almost felt like a way in which she felt like sort of fucked with in some way at some point along the way. But then there's also this information that her dad, she's really close to her dad. He's really loving. And so I was like trying to bring that into the picture because it sounds like they have a really close relationship. So then I was listening to Giggly Squad and she starts talking about how her mother, like her dad basically is just this sort of, I mean, she literally said, oh my God, it was all there. She's like, I love him. He's such a great guy. But he's just, whatever. Like anything serious, I go to my mom. My dad's just like a dude. Like guys can't, I forget exactly what she said. I wish I could remember her exact language because it was so telling. But she was like, guys can't handle this stuff. Like she paints this picture of her dad as a really great, loving father. But these are my words, like passive, unable to deal with the real stuff. Like she's like, I love him. But again, I just felt this kind of quiet contempt
or lack of respect.
Exactly. So, and then my mom talked to her all the time. She has all the answers. She's never wrong. I also thought this was really interesting. I'm going on a little bit of a digression. Just stay with me.
Yeah, it's great.
She, I listened to her podcast where she had this panic attack during the Giggly Squad tour when all this stuff I think was coming to a head with Craig, which to me, by the way, the fact that she's even having a panic attack, that to me, if I had to guess, speaks to the deep fear around I'm claiming the life that I want. I'm on this tour.
And disappointing others. Yeah.
I'm successful. I'm claiming the life that I want. Holy shit, I am terrified of doing this. But she and Hannah were talking about it. And she said she called her mom, or her mom called. And her mom's response was, you're fine. And, Paige was talking about it in a positive way of like, it actually grounded me and helped me, which is great. But I, as Jamie, also couldn't, I am always looking at the pattern, the symbols and the messages. Like there was something about like, oh, Paige is having feelings. Paige is in terror. Paige is like connecting to something deeper inside her. Oh, another thing Paige talks about that really stood out to me. She talks about on the podcast that she's very in tune with her own body. So she'll know when she's getting a UTI. She could sense when I think she said something about having like a cyst on her uterus, which I just thought was interesting because I was like, oh, see, you are deeply, like you're so sensitive. You are so sensitive.
Deeply.
So anyways, Paige is in her sensitivity. She's in her feelings. She's in her emotions. And her mom is like, you're fine. And so I was like, okay, so what if, and then this will be my concluding point that I'll bunt to you, but it's like, I'm just painting a hypothetical picture. What if mom is this very loving, very strong woman who's very set in her ways, strong decisions, kind of maybe what we might call kind of like, like a little emotionally like, oh, don't be so sensitive. Like, oh, mom knows best. Oh, this is just like the right thing for you. Oh, don't be so dramatic. You know what I mean? Kind of has that quality of it. And what if mom, again, maybe at odds with her own sensitivity, her own relationship to femininity, what if she has a quiet contempt for men, for strong masculine energy? And what if in her closeness with Paige, again, I would think it'd be very quiet, nothing spoken out loud, nothing overt. Like on the surface, this is just a close family that loves each other. And again, I believe that's true, but there's a quiet strain of women know best. This is amongst the girls. We love dad, but an unconscious message of he's kind of useless because men are useless. And then if Paige is sort of sitting there taking this all in as a little girl, feeling the quiet weight of this perhaps sort of quietly devouring mom knows best energy, calm down, quiet down, don't be so sensitive. And there's part of Paige that resents that aspect of the love. And then maybe as a little girl at an unconscious level, she's looking to her dad on some level being like, Dad, come be the dad and save me. Like step in, be the strong masculine presence who advocates on behalf of his daughter. And then he doesn't do that because he's like, the passive whatever. He's not claiming his voice in the relationship. And then the deep disappointment of that, which also then kind of proves the original message, right? It's like, you can't count on men. Holy shit, Dad, come in and show me that I can count on you. Holy shit, Dad, you didn't do that. And so then it brings me back to that message. I'll never give up my control to a man. I'll never let a man disappoint me. And what I heard today when I dropped in on a deeper level is, oh, I will never let myself be the little girl who needs her dad or who needed her dad. I will never let myself be the little girl who needed her dad because it's so painful and it's so vulnerable. And I was so disappointed. So I don't know. I mean, this is hypothesis, but this is kind of where I've been with all of this.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I actually don't think it would be so overt for the women to talk about men in a certain way with humor. I just think they would use humor. And I think...
Oh, no, she does it now.
Yes, exactly. Her mother, too, though. I think her mother would make it obvious as well. And that's just sort of the things that men know nothing and we run the ship. And that's almost spoken quite a bit. It's funny. I know a lot of women. In fact, all of the women that I know who are feminists and the strongest sort of activists for women and kind of not anti-men, but I would say not non-sympathetic to men. I have 3 women in mind and they are strong. They just came out of the gate strong, right? All 3 of those women, I wouldn't call them, daddy's girls. All 3 of those women had wonderful fathers whom they very much love. All 3 of those women have yet to find a man that can live up to the expectations of their father. And now I went to my dad for emotion. My mom doesn't, she's not, she's just not the emotion person, but she was sturdy and secure and who gave me a secure life. My father didn't, but I could go to him because he was overly emotional, which wasn't a safe situation. But where you can go for emotion. And when she called her mom, she knew she was going to get that sturdy, bring me back into place and bring me back into alignment of, to your earlier point, who I'm supposed to be. What she needs is probably somebody to go a little bit deeper. But what she did in that moment was make a choice. She knew she would get from her mother to say, you're fine. And that snapped her into, I'm fine, which also says, I have to be fine, which is problematic long term, right? Especially when it comes to panic attacks, of which I've had. Sometimes you need to look deeper at what's causing all of that stuff. And I think self-deceit is the scariest thing to experience when you don't really trust yourself. And the word trust kept coming up as you were talking. Does she trust her father? Does she trust her mother? Does she trust Craig? I think when you were saying earlier, if Craig's not being 100% honest with her about, oh yeah, it's cool, I can move to New York, I think she knows that's a lie. He wouldn't be happy there. So I don't think she trusts him. And Craig is living in a fantasy. He has admitted this. He is willing to just forego all reality when need be. It's very Aquarian. Like, I'm just going to forego reality. When they pick their people, they pick their people. 2 really interesting and beautiful traits about both Craig and Paige is their loyalty. When they love somebody, they love somebody. That's why I was surprised to see her rage towards him now. They are loyal. They are good friends. And so I sort of think Paige's Achilles heel, what will bring up all the emotions for her is this guilt factor. So she feels guilty for not giving her parents what they want, which is a traditional husband. Like, I think she feels guilty. Like, look, I have this great guy. Half the world's telling me that, I take advantage of him. Like, the other half supporting me. But I have this guy and he loves me. And this is somebody who, to your point of the family loving her, she's never been devoid of love. She is beloved by many. Like, Paige is loved. It doesn't take a lot for Paige to get love. It is easy for her to get love. Most people who meet her fucking love her. So what's really going on might be she distrusts herself on if she's presenting or deserving of the love if she's not being authentic to herself also. Well, everybody loves me, but who the fuck am I? Do they love me or do they love the persona of me?
Yeah. So just to sort of bring this all together and explicitly name it in terms of my energetic working hypothesis, because you keep bringing up the guilt, and that's kind of why it brought me back to this possible family of origin dynamic of, oh, these people love me, I love them, they're giving so much to me. And because again, if Paige is clear, right, in her essence, and so let's say her mother, if I'm right about this, right, as a hypothetical example, is bringing her a lot of love, but is also, there's a quiet demand and intensity in it. I can imagine as a young girl on an unconscious or semi-conscious level, there might have been a part of her that wants to push back and say, this doesn't feel good. Like, this part of it doesn't feel good. I love you, but let me be. Again, like what she would want to say to Craig. I love you, but let me be. I love you, but back off. I love you, but let me have space. But then feeling guilty of having that voice in her, because again, she's been conditioned to believe this is love. Love is enmeshment. Love is being what other people want of you. Like, I don't have a right to this, so I feel guilty, right? And so I think to bring this all the way back, as you had mentioned before about the way that she's willing to have her voice with someone like Kyle, this is exactly the point that I was making last episode, except now I think I can make it even better. Let's just say I'm right about everything where, there's this triangulation happening. Oh, and by the way, right? Pattern. That whole last episode was about triangulation. So now I'm talking about possible triangulation between her mother and father, right? But let's just say I was kind of right about something where something's going on between Craig and Kyle, right? And it's having ramifications for Paige. Paige, because of everything we're talking about, is going to pull back from saying to Craig directly, snap out of this. You're acting up. You're causing drama. Basically, these are my real feelings about what's going on, right? She's pulling back from that. And then similarly, I mean, again, this is my hypothesis. If, on a deeper unconscious level, because I'm sure consciously she's aligning with Hannah, but if she could let herself, I mean, look, it's my perspective that Hannah was the one who drove the ship of her own termination from Summer House. Maybe others will disagree, but let's just go with that for a second. If being a true, honest friend may have been looking at Hannah and saying, you know what, Hannah, I love you. I don't really think this was Kyle's fault. I think you did some stuff to get yourself in this situation. And by the way, maybe I have some feelings about the impact this has had on my relationship with Amanda. Like, she's afraid to bring that to Hannah, hypothetically, right? So again, going back to the pattern we were talking about earlier, Paige is holding all this back from the two people that she loves in this triangle, right? So now I'm pissed. I'm angry. I have this clear, righteous voice. Kyle, and again, Kyle made it very easy for her. Kyle did something that she had a right to be mad about, which was rage texting her. So let me use this as the safe, indirect doorway to unleash all this rage. And I think that's where we see her, coming back to my original point, be so assertive, be so outspoken, be so powerful in her voice. And she's done this throughout, right? Well, like she used to leverage this at Lindsay a lot in the early years. And so then someone like me comes along and is like, holy shit, she's fucking mean. Oh, and then to bring in the last point you were making in terms of the overall pattern, because you keep bringing up how they've turned mean towards each other. And I agree with you. That really stuck out at me because when I listened to the Giggly Squad episode where she announced the breakup, Molly, I don't know if you listened to it. It was a whole different tune. She was so kind about Craig and gracious in the way that she spoke about him. I mean, maybe we need to take a moment to even break that down. I mean, it could be two things. It could be one, she was trying to, present something to the world to make it look a certain way. Maybe she meant it in the moment. I don't know. But what I do know is I've clocked, like you, that in the aftermath, she is like going much more scorched earth on him. And I think at the very least, a lot of it probably has to do with everything I'm saying. It's this pent up rage that she's never, like, it's the rage. It's not even the rage towards Craig. It's the historical rage of her having silenced herself all these years. And maybe part of what's happening is she did try to present this in a certain way. And maybe she thought the narrative was going to go a certain way, kind of like what Tom was trying to do with Ariana. I mean, this is totally different because, I mean, you get it. Obviously, Paige wasn't out there like cheating on Craig and whatever. But maybe she thought there's a way this is going to go in public perception. I'm worried about what's going to happen if I break up with him. I've done it. I have a certain narrative that I want this to go by. I want people to see this in a certain way. And then in the aftermath, people started questioning her. Is she cheating? Oh my God, Paige is such a bitch. And how could she? Like, it almost feels like the narrative slipped away from her possibly. And so for someone like her who has contorted herself for the sake of other people's expectations, maybe this is kind of like that inflection point of, wait a second, I contorted myself for other people's expectations and it's not fucking working. I'm still paying a price. People are still judging me. People are still like making me pay for it. Holy shit. Now I'm fucking pissed because what was the point of silencing myself all this time?
Yes, 100%. And if I'm right that, she has always had love, I think she would be aware of love coming to her is something that's easy to come to her. And what drives most of us, right? Getting love. So I'm trying to think like what's driving some of her behavior is like keeping the perception and also getting love and keeping the love. Well, I've gotten love very easily by being this one person and doing all of these things and doing the narrative and knowing what to say and what to dress, by the way, how to look. That's always been a big part of who she is. I know how to look. I know how to be. I know what to say. And I know what I'm doing in order to continue to get the love. And that's has worked for me in the past. So why wouldn't it continue to work for me? And how do I keep that going? And if we're right about her maybe not having the best relationship with her own trust within herself, if there is this self-deceit where she doesn't even trust she knows what she wants because she's so... I think one of the other issues with Scorpio is that we absorb everybody else around us. They say that we're like the tax man, like as far as karma too. Like and if you look at the tarot, it's the death card, which is all about transformation, but also the death card represents Scorpio. So does the tower. Tower card is about being restructured from the universal divine, right? The forms and the structures that were once in place are being torn down and we're being reborn. And the death card, you're having the decapiteur. What is a decapiteur doing? Taking off death of the ego. So death of the intellect, like intellect only, and disconnection from soul. And then in order for that to be completely dismantled, you have to go through this death and rebirth. And so we're in her journey, her scorpionic journey here, where she doesn't even know that she doesn't know what she wants. And I think we're kind of seeing her say like, I don't know. I'm finding out. I'm having fun over here. I'm having fun in the present moment, but I don't know what I want for the future. And I don't have to play the game anymore. So here's the word that kept coming up to me when you were talking. Displaced rebellion. This is how I feel about a lot of the women at Summer House, but I think a lot of women in the world. I think we do have the patriarchal and systems indoctrinated in the world in such a strong way that's not only harmful for women, but harmful for men, as we're seeing play out in the world stage right now, right? We talk about it every time I come on the episode. But the displaced rebellion is when you focus that the confines of that and you focus it on one person in your life because you can't liberate yourself from the structures, the inner structures that you allowed to take hold of your psyche and allowed you to dictate all your choices based off of still being loved by the patriarch, still being loved by the systems that were in place a long time ago, not trusting that my family will still love me if I choose for myself. I'm going to disappoint everybody and I'm going to be racked with guilt and everyone's not going to love me. Love has always been here for me. Well, if I do what I want, will it still be here? Is it conditional? Not believing in unconditional love. But here's Craig. He says he loves me, but then he wants a family. and this, that, and the other. So now my trust is being torn from him. And then, of course, you have, you talked about triangulation. Paige had that triangulation with Austin and Craig. I mean, the funniest thing I've ever seen has been Austin, of all people, was telling Craig that Craig's a liar. I'm like, Austin, coming from you, that doesn't mean much. But anyways, the triangulation of Austin, Paige, and Craig. Then we have Paige, Amanda, Hannah. Then we kind of have Paige, Amanda, and Kyle. Is she does find herself in these situations, and she also got into it with Lindsay and Carl quite a bit too. I can foresee her getting into it with Sierra and maybe Jesse, where it's sort of like she does have opinions. She will tell you in the testimonial in a covered up way with humor, but does she allow herself the dignity of maybe being disliked? I think that's something that really drives a lot of her behavior. I don't think she's comfortable being disliked because I don't think it's ever happened to her. I think she's used to being loved. She's magnetic. She knows how to be hypnotic with her words. And I think the idea of anybody not giving her that love, or that love getting cut off if she were to just go after it and be herself and fully liberate herself, is terrifying to your point. And she's mad at Craig for being hurt and wanting to be with her still. She's mad at him for making her feel guilty, right? I know, and I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. And also what was coming to me even before you just said that, and we've basically already said this, but just to say it really simply and succinctly, it's like she gets mad at Craig and others for her withholding her truth. It's like, I withhold my truth from you, and then I'm pissed at you for the way you, quote unquote, make me feel. And I agree with you, just going way back, that moment with Sierra at the picnic table, that was like a rock star moment for Sierra, because Paige totally was putting it on Craig. Like, why won't he just break up with me? And, Sierra bringing it back to her and just saying, no, Sierra in a way was speaking to everything we're speaking to here. Sierra was basically saying, Paige, you claim what you want. Like, you claim what you want. You claim your life for yourself. You draw the line in the sand. Which we could have a whole separate episode about Sierra, but that moment, it was such a powerful moment. And yeah, it feels like it really got to the heart of everything we're establishing about Paige's sort of deeper hero's journey. It feels like there's so much connected to what it means for her to claim what she actually wants for herself against what other people might be wanting or expecting from her, and that's the true liberation. And then, of course, there's something from a soul task perspective, there's something very layered in here around the masculine and the feminine, I'm sure both within and without.
Yeah. It's funny because it's Passover today. And one of the themes of Passover is being liberated from the Pharaohs, the oppressor, right? And that's sort of like when I said the displaced rebellion, if she could have that inner rebellion within, and I think that's why she's drawn to Hannah, because Hannah appears to be rebellious. I don't think she actually is. I think she's actually quite manipulative and controlling, but I think she appears to be this rebel who lives by, well, let's give her some credit. She did. She forged her own path and she's made it work for her, and God bless. She's doing it, right? But I think, like, if Paige could liberate herself from her own egoic construct and truly not care about how she's perceived, which is hard, but like to truly follow her, I think she would in turn get everything she's ever wanted. I think that goes for all of us. But I think it's interesting today on that, on whether I'm not even Jewish. I'm just saying that I like to take the symbolism of all of the religions of what they're offering each time, and death and rebirth in this scenario. I think, though, that because control and power rules part of her DNA, it's very difficult for her to be in a surrendered state of vulnerability. And I think that's really the crux.
Yeah. And for some reason, when you were talking, what I was suddenly drawn to, and this, again, it speaks to everything we've been saying today, but it also speaks to what I was saying at the end of my last Summer Habits episode, where I said, like, I feel like actually Paige is struggling perhaps much more than people give her credit for. I'm just suddenly really with how deep this fear actually feels. That it really, again, I said it before, she was having a panic attack. But again, that's the thing. Paige is so put together and high functioning and successful that it even in talking about this, it's still easy for me to almost overlook how deep this fear is. And now that I'm not overlooking it and I'm really letting myself feel like, holy shit, there is a very vulnerable, scared girl in there. It does make me so curious about whatever was in that kind of silent suffocation, silent demand, because it really, again, I 100% believe it was mostly silent, and I 100% believe this was a very loving, supportive household. But there's something in there that's like, it feels almost a little bit like life or death of just, if I speak up or speak out, like I'm really in trouble, like I'm in danger. And so that's so interesting to me.
And the fear that you were talking about, the fear manifesting in the body, you talked about how she's deeply connected to her body. She is somebody who gets very overwhelmed. She has to be in bed a lot of the times. In the last couple episodes, she says to Craig, while she's with him, she shuts down. Her body closes off. Like, she literally looks like she says, my whole body hurts. She is like a very young, vibrant individual. And she's like, my whole body hurts. It's like she can be public facing, like for a while, but she needs to be in the bed most of the time. That has been her shtick. That is like part of who she is, because I think she just needs all of this downtime to manage all of this posturing. And I hate to say that because, Paige, I adore and respect you, and I literally admire who she is. I admire her, but I also can see the posture. I can see the posturing, and I can see it's not only posturing, it's just because she's so aware of the energies around her, as she's, the scorpionic thing too, is like she's absorbing a lot that other people are not absorbing. She's absorbing everything. She can feel Craig. She can feel Sierra. She can feel Jesse. She can feel everything that's going on. She doesn't show it. She's somewhat stoic, but then she's got to be in bed for 10 hours just to like cope with all of the things, not to mention having to put on a face to keep up the facade, to keep the love flowing in, right? What drives us is like to be loved, and she already is loved. And so she wants to keep it. But when you said that she has this relationship to the body, and then I've seen so many episodes where this girl, even seasons ago, where she's in her 20s, she's exhausted. Why is she so exhausted? Why is she so fatigued?
Yeah, and you're basically saying this, but yeah, what comes up for me too is just that notion of, if she is so sensitive and if she's so connected to her body and her inner wisdom and to her clarity, and then she's betraying that. I get it, because look, my intuitive ability is primarily clairsentient. For those who don't know, that means it comes through my body, meaning like I literally get gut feelings. And when I sit here and say, oh, I'm feeling her heart, I am literally having a sensation in my fourth chakra, in my heart center, in my chest, where like I feel this tenderness, I feel this sadness, I get feelings in my body. And so I'm getting the sense that Paige is very similar, where she's got this very sort of deep connection with the body. So yeah, if she's betraying her truth, then I agree with you. That's going to have a huge effect on her life force. And it's so interesting. This is helping me so much because I've always had a little bit of a reaction to the bed bug thing, which is weird because as you're saying this, I get it. I have to rest so much because of who I am. So I guess in a way I'm a bit of a bed bug, but it's so interesting. I was going to do this as a reel. Maybe I still will, but maybe I won't if I'm going to talk about it on the podcast. But someone on Instagram actually asked me, what's going on, like on a deeper level with Sierra and the messiness of her room? And I was like, that is I love that. Guys, I just want you guys to know, if you ever want to request a hit from me about Bravo stuff, the more specific, the better. And something like that I fucking love because it's so specific. And so I did start dropping into it a bit. And, what came to me just right, I'm feeling it right now. God, sorry. And I think this is part of what Sierra and Paige have in common. It feels like safety. Like that's what it felt like to me as Sierra. It felt like a safety blanket. It felt like a cocoon. It felt like I get to just snuggle up in bed and like I'm in an embryo. And as I followed it, it was a similar feeling of just exactly what you were saying. As Sierra, I'm gorgeous. I'm a working model. I'm on a hit reality show. I'm also a nurse. I'm out there in the world and I am doing things. But there's something in me, there's a fear in me. And every time I try to imagine Sierra being in a clean room, in a clean space, I'm doing it right now. I'm looking over my shoulder. It's this feeling like something's going to come up from behind and swipe me out. Like my feet are going to be like, the rug's going to be pulled out from under me. That's the moment I get sort of taken by surprise. So there was something for me energetically with Sierra about like this mess it's like this little way that I can kind of drag my feet in the sand so that I'm not fully out there and I have some sort of false sense of safety. So I guess I'm just saying that because it feels like, well, I mean, again, this could be a whole other. I mean, look, we're not going to go into Sierra right now. We'll do a separate episode on Sierra.
Yeah, she's been the one, and just between you and me, she's been the one I've been most drawn to since she came on the season. Can we talk a little bit about, in regards to Paige and Craig, Austin? I find, Austin and Craig had such a interesting, like all of a sudden in this season, and I'm not going to jump into Southern Charm too much, but it was hysterical to see a season of Southern Charm where the moral compass was Austin of all people. It's just hysterical. But, his relationship to Craig, I think had a lot to do with Paige. And Paige's relationship with Austin had a lot to do with Sierra, speaking of. And again, this triangulation system where I feel like Paige she rode the fence on that. And then again, this displaced rebellion is, we've kind of been circling around this throughout this whole conversation about the men and the women of Summer House. But when the women come together against the men and vice versa, there's something in there that a part of it scares me for where we're at in the world stage right now. It doesn't feel progressive to me. And it feels like there was a writer, a wonderful writer, she's passed now. And she said to me when she was working on a TV show, she had a female come in. There were two females that came in to be showrunners, and one was in her divine feminine. She would let her intuition guide her. And it was so strong. Her intuition and her slowness and her ability to be a woman was so innate in her that people followed her. And then there was this other woman who came in and acted like a man, basically embodied the toxic feminine or the toxic masculine in order to get power. And that's how she thought you had to get power. So sometimes when I see Paige gets really, really strong on the bandwagon for Sierra against men. We're talking ride or die. In fact, I will mother of dragons this entire situation and be the spokesperson for Sierra if I need be. And the rage in her face is so, to me, displaced. This is a displaced rebellion because it's are these men idiots and acting a certain way? Obviously, right? They're in their 20s. Some of them are older, but the way about going against it, and then some of the toxic traits, there's toxic masculine and toxic feminine traits in both of these two groups. Some of these women end up embodying the sort of dictator and being cruel towards the men. I don't know if that's a solution.
No,
and that's what scares me.
Yeah, I think, this is what I'll say. One, I think we should do a separate episode literally about what we're seeing play out in the masculine and the feminine on Summer House, because I think that's a really interesting macro perspective. I'll drop a few little seeds here, and then I will hold a strong energetic line of let's save it for another, because it's a whole other thing. But yeah, there's two things I'll say. One, ever since the moment in this conversation where you talked about the battle between the women and the men on the show, it is so interesting to me that I personally have experienced Carl and Lindsay and Craig and Paige as energetically similar, but then also looking how in both those relationships, it almost feels like there's a bit of an inversion in terms of traditional, how you identify sort of traditional masculine and feminine energy, where Craig and Carl both feel like there's a deep sort of sensitivity and sort of nurturing quality to them. And both Paige and Lindsay, they have that kind of spitfire, wearing the pants. I hate that expression, but wearing the pants in the relationship. And so I think it's so interesting that that's playing out in both those relationships. And so it just sort of speaks, I guess I'm just saying it because it speaks to this, what you're bringing in about what are we seeing reflected of the collective in Summer House about masculine and feminine energy. Because part of what I feel, with Craig, no, I'm getting sad. I feel so much shame in Craig. Like, that's just always what I get off him. I just think this is a guy who has so much core shame and such a deep sense of being at odds with the core of who he is. And I've felt that, as many people know, I binge watched Southern Charm for the first time last year from the beginning to the end. And, just taking Craig in at the beginning when he was still a lawyer and I didn't really know anything about where this was going. I just remember taking him in, just being like, oh, everyone's calling him lazy and down on him because he sleeps late. And I was just like, that's not what's going on. Like, this guy is not a 9-to-5er. Like, he's trying to fit himself into this square hole to prove something. I was like, this guy's a creative. He's an actor. He's a model. Like, he's weird. And I could just feel like, to me, Craig, like the title of Craig's memoir is Round Peg in a Square Hole. He's trying to make himself something that he's not. He's trying to make himself a normie. And the reason I'm just saying this is I think part of it is Craig, and I relate to this because I have so much strong feminine energy. I think he's got deep feminine energy in him. And I think that's part of what's made him feel weird and worthless.
Can I speak to something on what you just said? It just made me more sympathetic to Paige for a moment because when you said shame, I thought of, obviously I'm 20 years sober and shame is such a huge part of any, alcoholic existence. And then it made me realize, oh, wait a minute. He was isolating with Paige while getting sober. That's not the way to do it. And she must have gone through all kinds of stuff we don't know about during that period. And she must be harboring a lot of guilt and fear. And you're always in worry that they're going to drink again or act out again. And his behavior was erratic in groups of people that she would then have to apologize for him or not apologize and have his back. So I just want to send some sympathy her way and not to shame him more. I've been in his situation, like I said, but for him to be just with her and not to have a support system of other sober people around him, that's a lot to put on her, by the way. And that might have a lot to do with what has led to the anger we're seeing in her as well.
And also to bring Craig back into it, it's like, because you mentioned the isolation with Paige and, that's like what I saw at the reunion of Southern Charm was just the way Craig isolates. And so for me, that's the shame. It's like he's working on himself, right? To your point, I want to get sober. I want to be better. And it's almost like Craig is always trying to outrun himself. He's always trying to be better than who he is. So that's why when he does start to succeed as a pillow king or a successful Bravo celebrity, rather than letting that fuel his forward trajectory in a constructive way, it's like, okay, I'm this guy now, and now I'm proving something, and his ego comes in because he's still outrunning something inside of himself because of all this shame. And so then when it's time for him to get help or, to turn over a new leaf, it's like, I'm doing this on my own because he's protecting something inside of himself. And then he pushes away friends like Austin. Anyways, so coming back though to what we were saying, I think the point that I'll make about Sierra in the context of all of this and why I get a little, or kind of the way that I would want to challenge her, it's like, yes, to your point, obviously she's choosing shitty men. And even with West, it's like, I was rooting for her. She was drawing such clear boundaries. I was like, you go, Sierra, you know what you want. Then West wouldn't give her a straight answer. He was hemming and hawing and she just went along with it. And I remember sitting there being like, Sierra, there was a scene where they went to the horses and literally he did not give her a straight answer. And I was like, Sierra, what the fuck are you doing? You are drawing strong boundaries. You're saying what you want. He's showing you he's not ready to do that. And yet you're going back.
That's what I said. I got dragged online for saying that.
So anyways, Sierra clearly has, I don't even know if it's unconscious at this point, but an unconscious, semi-conscious, conscious investment in unavailable men. And when I feel into that for her, it's like, look, to me, it's so clear. Sierra on some level does not want a strong, available man who's going to meet her in reciprocity. Now, why is that? My sense is on some level, it will then ask her to step into her adult womanhood. If she steps into her adult womanhood, because if she's with an adult man, she's got to be an adult woman. If she's an adult woman, I really believe this on an unconscious level, it means her father or a father figure is not coming in to rescue her and save the little girl who needed help.
Oh, shit.
Now, And so this is why I get a little prickly, because I'm like, and look, I get, again, we're talking about the unconscious and these are blind spots. So I'm not actually sitting here criticizing Sierra. But when I see like Sierra and Paige turn this around to like, and this is why I'm saying this, it goes back to your point, fuck Austin, fuck men, fuck West, they did this, they did that, see, men suck. I'm just like, but wait a second. In the words of Bethany Frankel, you can't play stupid and smart at the same time. If you're sitting around investing time in fuckboys because there's a little girl in you who wants to be rescued by a knight in shining armor that doesn't exist, that's fine. But you don't then get to like scold men for not showing up as men, especially when you aren't necessarily showing up as a woman. And, you know, this might be, I don't know if this is a triggering thing for me to say or not, but it's just what I feel. And so when you talk about then too, like Paige picking up that mantle and fighting on their behalf, when you were saying that, again, it just brought me back to this voice of like, I am so disappointed in the way my dad let me down. And now I'm fucking letting it out.
Yeah. Well, you know, with West, it felt like with Austin, it felt justified. Maybe that's some of my own stuff, but like Austin was so overtly messy and he's, you know, usually gets away with it. He typically gets away with it. West was like just a kid. And like I thought West made it clear he was an unavailable person, but I'm a, 43-year-old woman who's looking at it from that. When I was in my 20s, if they said maybe, that meant I'm still here. We still got a chance. You know what I mean? So I empathize with her in that point. This is all unconscious, but like for them to go at West the same way they went at Austin, to me, doesn't make as much sense. I could see people, I actually feel like people go easy on Austin. I mean, he like straight up like Madison is friends with him, and you know what I mean? Like, and that's great. I think that's a good thing. But when it comes to like, just in general, or even going after like Kyle, or getting on with Lindsay around certain things, like there's just like it feels like there's an unprocessed rage of taking their own power back and letting men steamroll them, or feeling like they're being steamrolled by men. They don't process that correctly or have like a true, honest, beautiful, like real conversation with these men. And then later it just all comes out like in a gang against, and then which they feel the women, I will say in general, like one of our biggest beef with men is their passivity when they don't say the thing. There's a book called like How to Deal with a Passive Aggressive Man, because they're not trained. The patriarch hasn't trained men to be able to express their feelings. So then they don't, and then they act out. And then we have to deal with them talking out two sides of their mouth, doing one thing, saying another. Like we're seeing Jesse Solomon say one thing, so we deal with seeing them do these behaviors all the time, and it builds this rage. And the minute we get an opportunity to let it out, we take the opportunity. I do the same, unfortunately. It's a pattern that we in society have. And I'm just wondering how we could liberate, since today happens to be Passover and we're talking about liberation and this displaced rebellion. How can we, and how can Summer House have a real conversation and actually like break through this own inner like construct that we have, that we then rebel in other ways that are more destructive to us long term?
Well, I think we're talking about it, but I'll name it very clearly. And I feel like that will actually be a great note to conclude on. Before I pick up on the last thing you said, though, I just sort of want to bring in the voice of, no, I actually get why Sierra is super pissed at West.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
You are right. I mean, look, do I think that West was consciously leading her on and manipulating her? No, especially because, we're talking about with Paige, like blind spots, the narratives. I mean, talk about someone who wants to believe the narrative they want to write about themselves. West wants to believe he's just this nice guy. He really wants to believe that.
Yes, he does. Yes.
But, I think I felt for Sierra because, like I said, I did see her being really clear with him. And I felt like that's where he knew what she wanted. And I think on a certain level, although again, maybe this conversation about Paige should make me look at West a little bit differently, because if what we're saying is Paige genuinely didn't consciously know that she wasn't all in the same way that Craig was, I mean, it's different because they were in like a long-term committed relationship. And also Paige doesn't have a history of being a fuck girl. And, West has like literally never been in a committed relationship. So it doesn't feel it feels a little bit like apples and oranges. Anyways, the point being, Sierra was clear. And I feel like West was not clear in response. And maybe I have some residual charge against him because I did have an experience last season of everyone loving him and me just sitting there being like, am I fucking nuts? Like this guy is, I was just like, this guy's a fuckboy. Like, what are people seeing? So I started getting almost, maybe not even so much angry at West, but angry at like the viewer response, because there's always a part of me that's a little bit disappointed when the collective falls for the mask. Anyways, my point being, I have felt Sierra's righteous anger towards him. And I also will say, though, it does feel like at this point, it's kind of getting like, it's like there's a certain point, like once you're on these shows and you agree to be on these shows, you know, it's like you're at Summer House with him. Like at a certain point, you do have to kind of let this go, because the truth is she does have some self-responsibility in the sense that to my mind, he made it fucking clear, and she didn't listen because she wanted it to work out. And yes, West needs to take responsibility for his deception, but she also needs to take responsibility for not seeing the signs. Now, I think the good news for Sierra is I see her on her journey of learning. Like, I feel like she went from Austin, which was, like you said, that was just a total fucking mess that she threw herself into.
She is.
And with West, she was speaking up for herself, and she was clear, and she was drawing boundaries, and that was growth. I just think the next stage for her now is she has to have those boundaries. And when the guy doesn't fucking answer, she's got to say, I'm good, thanks, bye.
What she's doing is flirting with somebody who's taken. So, you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the thing. This is what I'm saying. Sierra doesn't actually want the relationships she wants.
No.
Let's just be clear. Okay.
Correct.
But so coming back around now to the final thing. No, I mean, I just think it's everything we're talking about. And I was actually going to kind of say this for Paige anyway, but you know, if we're holding Paige in all of this, I think that Paige at some point, if Paige really wants a meaningful relationship that works for her, and, you know, again, my sense is her sole task on some level is about this integration of the masculine and the feminine. She at some point is going to have to really look at this story that she writes, that men are, you know, whatever it is, like they're weak, they're passive, women have it all together, and to really be willing to challenge that within herself. And it's not even about for the men. It's about where does it take her internally in terms of her own inner journey if that narrative she's writing isn't necessarily true. And I think this is the key. I mean, we could also look at this from the male angle. Maybe we need to go to Craig, but from Paige's point of view, to surrender, I don't mean surrender in like a Stepford wife kind of way. Surrender just meaning like give up control, like surrender to the fact that there is a vulnerable part of her that wants to be in relationship with masculine energy. There's a part of her that wants to be vulnerable with men, and there's a part of her that deeply wants men to come through for her, and that she can have that and also be what we're calling a strong, independent woman. I actually think the two go hand in hand, because I think if she lets herself know that deeper vulnerability, to our point,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
The version of her that's like a strong, independent, it's not going to be like you're saying a posture. It's not going to be, I'm a strong, independent woman in reaction to the men who let me down. It's I'm a strong, independent woman because I've integrated all these different parts of myself. Yeah. And
I own it. Yeah, I am. I am that I am that I am.
And this goes for all of us. It's like, put gender aside. Like Jamie, as a human being, I have the little boy in me who's vulnerable. I have the strong adult in me who's like a warrior. Like we all have these different parts of ourselves. So it's just a matter of owning them for ourselves, not playing a power game with other people or trying to make it safe for us to reveal different parts of ourselves, but owning it for ourselves, integrating it within ourselves, bringing that to the world, bringing our truth to the world, and then we can be met or not met by the people around us. I don't know if that fully answered your question about...
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It totally did. It goes back to Carl Jung. You know, you seek what you don't necessarily have within, and which doesn't work. So then you have to kind of pull on the strong masculine within if you haven't developed that. Usually drawn to somebody who has something that you don't have. And I think in Paige's case, she actually has more of the, I wouldn't say toxic, but some of the male traits if males were raised to not be able to feel their emotions, and if she calls her mother and she has to be fine, then maybe the thing that she's drawn to in Craig is the sensitivity. And maybe if she could develop the sensitivity within herself and allow herself more leeway with her emotions and being vulnerable and seen, then that could sort of heal her and have this wholeness integration that you're talking about. And then from that place, she'll attract the partner that she's not going to be at battle with.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a point I was thinking about earlier, which is like from the context of what we're exploring, Craig makes so much sense because on a certain level, he does embody her disowned sensitivity, right? Like he's willing to hold space for that. Now again, in him, it doesn't feel fully integrated or mature yet. So there are these aspects of, I mean, I hate this word, but like what we could call neediness. He demands a lot. It feels like his little boy is running the show in terms of his sensitivity. But again, kind of like with Sierra, you can kind of see Paige like learning her lessons. Like she's shifting because on Giggly Squad, she did share that, one of her formative early relationships was actually like an abusive one with a guy who apparently was physically and emotionally abusive. So it feels like if we're looking at everything as sort of like a reflection of things, like that would be obviously the most extreme version of like patriarchal distortion, right?
I didn't know that. That changes my whole view as to why she responds to men then. I didn't know that.
But, moving towards someone like Craig, who, is definitely like a dude, but like I said, has very strong feminine energy and sensitivity. And I feel a fluidity in him. I mean, look, that's actually, okay, so I'll just say it. I mean, part of like the unconscious shame in Craig is like, I do kind of feel like there's a little bit of it, like there's a fluidity in him. And it's not that I think Craig is someone who like deep down wants to dress in women's clothes or anything like that. But this is the thing, our world. And so I'm bringing this back to the macro, to your point, we're trying to sort something out here around the masculine and the feminine. And I think we get so literal with it. And I think we get so binary. We get binary with it even in the non-binary. So it's like suddenly there's a word for fluidity, which is non-binary. And, and by the way, if you refer to yourself as non-binary, I love it for you. Great. This isn't a judgment of that. It's just saying like what I see in the world is that it's so hard for us to hold like the complexity and the possible subtlety of gender fluidity or even sexual fluidity. And what I see in Craig...
I know. Or energy fluid. Because I was talking about Craig energetically. Yeah.
Well, okay. So yeah, but like I feel in him, there's a kind of subtle gender fluidity where he's not all one thing and he's not another. I'm the same way. And that feeling like part of his possible shame where, again, on the unconscious level, if there's an awareness of this fluidity, there might be like an alarm bell ringing of like, oh shit, what does this mean about me? Like, do I want to put on makeup? Do I want to dress in women's clothes? You know what I mean? It's like, I got to keep that all away. And it's like, no, it might not mean any of that. It just might mean you have these strong currents of masculine and feminine energy.
Right. I would say the same about Austin, believe it or not.
Well, no, totally. And that's actually part of what makes Austin likable in the way that he's likable. There's like a softness to him and a sensitivity. He's sort of like, Austin gets together with Madison and gossips.
He's one of the girls. He is one of the girls.
Exactly. He's one of the girls. And I mean that in a great way. It's fun. I would want to hang out with that Austin. I'd want to get a drink with Austin and gossip and be one of the girls with him. So anyways, we've brought in so much. This feels like a great place to rest. I feel like we covered a lot. Do you have a concluding note?
No, I feel we've covered it. Now we're all going to be bed bugs. I mean, like, that's the thing. That's the energy of Paige, right? Is now you need to like go lay down, because I do think that she has that Kundalini energy flowing through her, but not 100%. Here's what I'll end with. She hasn't authenticated fully in a real powerful way for herself. Not that any of us necessarily have. I'm just saying, like, I think she has this depth of power and possibility within her. I think when she realizes she doesn't want to settle down with Craig, I think it's because there's something pulling her that's bigger than her, that has to do with her formation of self within her own being. It's not even about relationships. I actually think she's on that road, I hope. But it can't just be all in the material. It has to do some internal work as well.
Yeah, and I think just to circle back around to your previous question, and this will be my concluding note, I think the first step for Paige right now is, yes, just what we said, her willingness to let herself know what she actually wants for herself, her willingness to claim it, and then her willingness to actually be emotionally transparent in relationship. And if she's pissed off about something, she says it. If she wants something, she says it, and to say it directly. And I don't mean that like in a glib way. She's going to have to give her inner child time and space to come around to that, because again, it is scary for her. There's some sort of life or death panic attack energy around that. So she gets to take her time with it. But she, in my mind, she needs to create space to start letting herself know what she actually wants and to claim it. And it just feels like that's the breadcrumb that's going to lead her to deeper integration.
Yes. It might be bigger than Giggly Squad. You know what I mean? It might be separate from Hannah.
I mean, I'm going to reserve my personality judgments about
Yep. Yes,
all that.
I know. Same.
Molly, it is always such a joy. Tell people where they can find you.
Thank you. You can find me at Molly Durand on Instagram. I've got a lot of music coming out. My band, Lyra in the Light, we just had a little feature on an NPR music radio, and we have a bunch of songs coming out. I am a vocal coach, tarot enthusiast, as Jamie says, and singer, songwriter, and actor. And that's where you can find me. Having fun.
Okay, great. And as always, you guys can follow me on Instagram, Jamie Stein, JamieStein, and you'll find exclusive content there. And if any of this content is ringing bells in you and you're curious about your soul task and what's going on in you in a deeper level, or just wanting to claim what you truly want for yourself, you can click the link in the show notes. That brings you to a short little application about working with me. And as always, feel free to share with me your thoughts, your insights, your own hits, and I will see you guys on the flip side. Bye.